Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another Excel quick tip. Today we're going to be talking about if statements. If statements are a very powerful formula that are used to check for a specified condition, and if that condition has been met, it returns a value. If the condition has not been met, it'll return another value. All these values can be specified. And so before we jump into Excel and actually building if statements, I kind of wanted to go through the structure of the formula so there's an understanding of how the formula works. As you can see, all formulas start with an equal sign, and then the formula itself is if, and then in parentheses, you'll place your parameters that will specify how you want the if statement to work. The first statement is the condition that must be met. So this can be something simple as if a specified cell is greater than 100. So let's say you're looking at transactions and you want to designate them as either high value or low value. You may check the if the specific cell that has the transaction amount in it is greater than 100, then comma, value of true would be high value, comma, value of false would be low value. So then that way it would check to see if that condition was met. If that transaction was greater than $100, it would be considered high value, and if not, it would be considered low value. Now, that's a simple version. There are much more complex ways you can build some of these parameters. So for instance, with conditions, you can do a Vlookup with an operation. So maybe you're going to see if the Vlookup returns a certain result, is it equal to what you were expecting, or is, maybe you're looking at numerical values. You can also use count ifs. So maybe if you want to check to see how many times that particular transaction for a product has been sold, and whatever it is, this can continuously get more and more complex, this condition right here. The same thing with the values, that can also become complex. You can do VLOOKUPs and get pivot data. But what's commonly used is putting more if statements within if statements. So these are called nested if statements. So right here is a nested true if statement. Personally, I don't use the nested true very often. I find myself more using the nested false, which we'll cover in a second. But essentially what will happen is you replace one of these values with a formula, with an if formula. And like I said, you can replace any of these parameters with other formulas, VLOOKUPs, whatever. But what this will do is check to see if this condition is met. If it's true, it will run another if. Okay, well, if that condition has been met, then what's the check for another condition, and then return true, return false. Now, unlike some other programming interfaces, maybe you're using Python or whatever, where you can actually break out formulas by line, Excel doesn't do that. So oftentimes it all gets jumbled together, but visually you should see that this if statement is a standalone if statement within an if statement. So be mindful of your parentheses and that you still have your commas where they're supposed to be. Now, nested false if statements tend to be what I use the most. And why I use this the most is this will check to see if a condition is met and return a value of true. If not, it'll then check another condition, return a value of true, and then you could even keep going. And so take an if statement and drop it into this false value. And one of the things, notice that if you do this, for however many if statements you have buried in here, you will have the equal number of ending parentheses if you're putting this in the false value. So with that being said, let's jump into Excel and actually start building some of these. Okay, so here we are. Once again, we're using basic baseball stats that we can use to do this. And we're going to build in some if statements. So if you have watched my previous video, you'll know that we do everything out of data tables. And if you need a refresher, what we're going to do is select anywhere in the data. You're going to Control A or Command A, depending on your operating system. Go up to Insert, Insert Table. My table has headers. And then now we're working out of a data table, and this data table is called table 2. I'm going to come over here, and we're going to add a home/away column. And as you can see, the table will automatically expanded to include that. And we're going to create a basic if statement. If, now in this data, we can see that it doesn't tell us home or away, but we can see if it's home or away by whether or not there's this @ symbol. So this is Tampa Bay Rays at Miami, whereas Tampa Bay Rays, New York Yankees, this does not have an @ symbol. So these are telling us whether or not they are away. So I'm going to select here. We're going to check to see if this column is equal to, now this is a string value. This is not numerical. String or is text or anything that you can't perform math on. So it could be a combination of text and numbers. But since this is a string, we're going to put this in quotation marks. And so that's our, you can see up here at the top, this is our condition formula. If column 2 equals the @ symbol, you can also see as you're typing, it will show up will give you a reminder of how if statements are built. And we're going to make this say away. Now, because once again, it's string, you have to put this in quotation marks. If you were doing numerical values, so if maybe we wanted to count the number of away games, you could put a number 1 there without putting it into parentheses. And so here we're going to do, for our false statement, home. And as you can see, because we're in data table, it automatically populates all the way down. Now there's another way to do this. If you don't like to write out the formula, whether it's in the cell or here in the top bar, you can select this formula builder, if, insert function. And you see here, now if you're on Windows, this will be a pop-out window. Logical test, we're still going to go, we want column 2 equals the @ symbol. Value if true, we're going to put away in quotations because it's string. And then value if false, home. And then you're done. It did the same thing. So this is nice because if you're struggling with remembering putting the commas in the right place, putting the parentheses in the right place, you can do this as well. Now, I know this isn't from an actual usability standpoint, this isn't going to really make sense. But what I'm going to do is now I'm going to now create a nested if statement. So I've removed the home, and I'm going to put an if. Now, whenever you nest formulas, the equal sign only goes at the very beginning of the entire formula, because that's telling that Excel that everything that follows is a formula and not just regular string that you want to type. So we're going to check this WL, this win-loss column. And we're going to say if this equals W, once again it's string in parentheses, then we're going to say home/win. And if false, we're going to say home/away. Now, I do need to include one final parentheses because this is its own if statement within an if statement. And I know you might not be able to see it very well on this screen, but if you look, there are the parentheses of this nested if statement are colored red. And so one of the things you'll notice is that you'll know that you'll have the right number of parentheses at the end if the last parenthesis is black, because the parent formula will have black parentheses, and then each set of parentheses for nested formulas within, this is not only for if statements, can also be for Vlookups, get pivot data, index match, all that will have its own. So we're going to go ahead and hit enter, and as you can see, we have this new one here. Now, one final thing about if statements, especially when you get into nested ifs and you can make formulas that are a mile long. Sometimes you have to troubleshoot them, and you can have ones that fill up this entire box. And the way to manage that is with the formula builder that I showed you before. If you select the first if and hit the formula builder, it'll show you the same way that we built it. Logical test, it checks for column is at, value of true away, value of false. Now it's going to show you that this is an if statement all on its own. And then result is home win. So you can see that the logical test was false. So there wasn't an at symbol. And so it went to value if false. But the problem is we have a formula here that we need to check. So you come up here, select the if statement, the nested if statement, and hit the formula builder again. Now it's breaking down that if statement, not the parent one. So true. So it's checking, does that field equal W? And it's saying for this particular cell we're looking at, that is true. And then value of true, value of false. So this is very handy if you are building complex if statements that could have, you can nest, Vlookups, index match, get pivot table, count ifs, sum ifs. You can nest a lot of stuff into these if statements to create a sort of rule and logic that'll help categorize or, do any kind of simple data manipulation that you're looking to do. And then if you get stuck, maybe the formula is not giving you the right result, then you can walk through each of the nested formulas and use the formula builder to troubleshoot. So I use that quite often. So hopefully this was very valuable for you. And if you did enjoy this, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you with some more Excel tips in the future.